Hello. I have been listening to nursery rhymes. I kind of wanted to start this off with hello, hello. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Say hello. Oh my goodness. I've been listening to the same songs on repeat for hours on end. It's in the background and it's just, oh. So, how are you? If we haven't met yet, it is nice to meet you. My name is Stephanie Gary. I am the blog content writer and editor, helping women coaches and consultants save time by planning, creating, and updating their blog posts so that their content can live longer in search results to attract more clients. I would love to help you get the most out of your content today by sharing a few content repurposing examples. And we have a few things to talk about today, but it looks like I broke it down into three primary categories, and then I have a preference to blog posts. I can't imagine why, but essentially, that's going to be like half the focus, and then the other half is if you don't do blogs as your primary content, because it's all still content marketing. It all still applies. A lot of times, just because your format isn't in blog post doesn't mean that that's can't be the primary focus. I can help you repurpose your content into a blog post because that works too. If you are showing up with me live, let me know. I would also love to hear from you if you're catching this on the replay. Let's just do a hashtag replay. We'll keep it simple and consistent. And oh, gracious. So I've heard from a few of you about the types of content you prefer to create. Some of you are more writers, but most of you prefer to talk in some manner, whether that be on the camera or off a camera, whether that be with a recording so that you are not trying to talk to someone live, because some people get more stage fright when whether or not someone is or isn't talking to them in the room. And then there's a few of you who are just preferential to recording the thing and then sending that information off to have someone else edit the videos to make them look great. There's a different style for everybody. You just got to find the one that works for you. And actually, I went ahead and made a decision tree to help you get started with the first part of it. Because ultimately, when it comes to repurposing your content, you got to know where you're starting. And you want that hero content, which is the content that you spend the most effort in creating. You want to make sure that that piece of content is the easiest or the most fun or the most natural for you to go ahead and produce. If you cannot seem to get a sentence put together that makes sense, if you cannot seem to get your thoughts together in a way that comes out of your mouth to make sense, if you struggle with looking at the camera instead of looking at the image of yourself on the screen, then these are different things to consider as far as what format might work best for you. Because you've got to meet where your audience is, but it's also got to work for you. Because if you can't keep up with it, you're not going to be able to be consistent. And that's another idea for another time. But ultimately, you need to be consistent for your audience. Are you reliable? And creating content in the format that's most logical for you is where it starts. So let's take a look at the screen share because I did a nice photo. Let's see that one here. All right. So your hero content decision maker. You start at the top. Are you a writer? Yes? Then write a blog post. No? Do you want to be on a camera? If not, record a podcast. If you do, determine if you want those videos to be edited. If you do, start on YouTube. If you don't, hop on a live stream. That's 4 different formats right there. That's all very good. If the thing to know about choosing one of these things is that the blog posts, podcasts, and YouTube are searchable forms of marketing. So you can create it today and then it can be showing up in search results a year from now. And it can still be providing value for your marketing efforts. The advantage of any of those three versus a live stream is how it shows up. Live streams can be done on YouTube as well, so it's not entirely unavailable. In fact, like right now, I'm recording this on a live stream on YouTube. I always make sure to go ahead and practice what you preach, right? And that's what I'm doing for you. So I am doing this as my hero content. It's a live stream. Why did I choose this? Because I don't really want to edit videos. I don't want to record podcasts because there's something about a podcast. I like to see people and I like to be seen because, my pretty face, it's part of my brand. Eventually, someday, I may be able to add more than this, but you got to focus on the thing that you can do until you have a team. And when you focus on the one thing that you can do yourself until you have a team and tools to help you create more, then you can be able to actually add to your marketing efforts. So it can be a different social channel, it can be adding in different strategies. Instead of just a bunch of blog posts, I might add in YouTube and then link the YouTube videos over to the blog posts so that we're tying it all together. There's a lot of different straight ways that we can do it, but ultimately right now you want to decide on the one thing that you want to focus on as your one hero content. Okay, and then over here is our list of examples. Now, I only could fit 7 on this slide, and I didn't want to overload the blog post category. I'm going to go ahead and talk about what I came up with, but I just want to make sure that this was available for you to see. Go ahead and screenshot this or take down notes. It'll be up for a minute here. We'll go ahead and talk about this. First, we've decided your hero content is going to likely be either in a blog post, YouTube, or a podcast. Even live stream, we're going to assume right now that it is on YouTube. So it's searchable in that form. For those platforms, you want to make sure that they're optimized and you're doing the right thing for there. From that point, you'll want to go ahead and consider repurposing the content. Where is it going to go? Your blog posts, we're going to start in the first column. Your blog posts can be repurposed as Medium articles. Medium.com is a place that you can pull your content from your website to their platform so that it is shared with a new audience. They have a whole economy of readers and writers that are over there. And if you feel that your people are there, that may be a great place to get more social following. You could create free or paid ebooks with your blog post. It may be a single blog post that is an ebook, or it could be a series of content that you put together to make an ebook. You could give an old post new life by resharing it as a LinkedIn article. If your audience is already on LinkedIn and you already have that engagement or that presence on LinkedIn, this would make sense because you would want to not quite copy and paste, but pull the same concepts out of the blog post and into LinkedIn. This will help give you new life for that content, and LinkedIn likes the native articles as opposed to links to external sources, just like any other social platform prefers staying on their own website. You could also create a slide deck for a slide share where the content is the same, you just have a more visually broken down presentation of the information. You could have a roundup blog post talking about all your other blog posts where you give a brief introduction and then you link to the other blog posts you already have. This can be a great pillar post style if that works for the kind of content you have. Um, for example, if you are training on how to knit, you could have a beginner roundup patterns, and then medium or intermediate is the word I was looking for, and then advanced patterns. So there's a collection there, and then of course your service would be the actual working with people to help them knit, right? There's a few different other ideas where that could work, um, but roundups are definitely a pretty easy way to pull information you've already got together into another piece of content. You could create an infographic. Infographics are great for visually, quickly providing information that can be a little difficult to digest in some other formats. Your blog post, it can have all that information in there, whether it's a guide with step-by-step of what to do, or if it's a bunch of statistics that you might have in there. There's a lot of different styles of infographics, but those can help you quickly share the information on other platforms and within the blog post itself. And then last on my list here is an email series. You can pull the blog post, whether it is copy and paste or you have an introduction with a link to your full blog. Either one works. It'll depend on you and your style, your preferences, but both are totally valid emailing methods for your blog posts. I want to give you some bonus ones that I came up with just as I was trying to pull together this list here. Um, your blog posts can also be assembled as a course. So if you're wanting to have a course that you offer as a digital product, you can pull your blog posts together and make it a series. And instead of an ebook format, just make it more of a course format and sell it from there. You could have a short video that explains a little bit more about a certain part of it, um, where you maybe more or less read directly from the content, or you're just summarizing it in perhaps shorter time frames so that if someone prefers to listen instead of reading or watch instead of reading the content, you'll have a video format that's ready there on that page. Um, Content upgrades, that's where someone would give you an email for you to send them a free something. This can be a PDF, it can be a checklist, workbook, it can be a guide, it can be a workshop. There's a lot of different styles of content upgrades, but ultimately your blog post can actually be repurposed into a content upgrade. You can use the blog post, reword it a little bit, and make the same content an actual guest contribution content for another website. So you can share the same information in more than one place and have it be your, let's say, your PR pitch, and that's what you talk about. And then, let's see, lose my spot on the list. Oh, your blog headers, statistics, and any quotes that you have that are really good in that article, you can pull that and make it into a individual like social post on any social platform. And that is without doing anything else to it. It's just the words, right? Of course, you always have the images you can make out of that too, and then put it up on the social. You can literally read your blog post and make that a podcast episode. There have been a few successful podcast shows where at the beginning of every episode, they identify what blog post they're reading, where they can find it if they want to read instead of listening, and commence the reading itself. And then it just ends. A lot of those blogs, they are about 1,000 words, and it's anywhere from 15 minutes per podcast episode. So if that sounds like something that'd be good for you, that might be something you'd want to try. And then, of course, simply updating the blog post and re-promoting it. This might be 3, 6 months or more after you've initially created it so that you know what kind of updates it might need. Okay. Let's move on to the next categories. We've got the YouTube videos. How are we going to repurpose that? You can actually repurpose that as an IGTV upload. It can be uploaded to Facebook, whether it's your profile, it's a page, or your own Facebook group. You can upload your videos there. To share it on Facebook or any other social platform, you'll want to upload directly onto the platform instead of sharing a link to your YouTube video. You can use the content from the YouTube videos for your webinar, and it could potentially be you compile a bunch of different video clips and make it a webinar, or you can pull what's the content that is in the video and then record a fresh webinar video itself. I've seen both. They can work. Then you can make a YouTube video into a blog post, and that way it is either a highlight reel or most important parts. It can be more or less a transcript. There's a few different styles, but essentially you'll have your content showing up on YouTube and on your website, and both of them would be linked to each other. So YouTube has a link to your blog post, and your blog post has a link to the YouTube video, or not a link, embedded your YouTube video. Because when you embed your videos on your website, the view counts are still included. Next is the podcast. You could actually pull the audio and make it a podcast episode. If you are capable of separating that, great. If not, there are some options to tweak, to edit, so that you can make it so that it is a podcast episode without too much word interception? No. Without too much trouble. Not like the trouble I'm having with finding my word right now. Why can't I think of it? Well, moving on. The point is, you can make a podcast episode out of the YouTube videos. Totally doable. You can use a part of your YouTube video for a promotional video. A lot of times this is promoting your business, your brand, what it is that you do. So maybe like a elevator pitch type of video. It could be a promotional for a specific service that you offer or a product that you have for upcoming release. Think like a movie trailer, where you're getting someone interested in something that's coming up, and it's a whole marketing series. Just like we've had some movies that we are aware of that are coming out in 2022, and it's still March of 2021. There are lead times to when some things are released. You can do that with your videos too. And then also your web pages. And the most popular example I can come up with here for you, so that you can visualize what I mean, is either your about page or your sales page, where the information on that page is basically what your video is saying, reworded, so that the people who'd rather listen to the video instead of reading the page can get the same information. Your about page and your sales page often will perform better in converting their audience if you happen to have a video at the top of the page, like in the header section. Podcast episodes can be repurposed also as a blog post. So just like you can read a blog post, you can get a transcript or a summary highlight of what you talked about in the podcast as a blog post. You can do an audiobook, a series of podcast episodes can address different topics. And if you have, for example, 30 to an hour long 30-minute to an hour long episodes that can easily be combined to make a fairly lengthy book. Because if you will notice, each chapter is anywhere from a few minutes to an hour, I've seen, and then the overall book can be a couple hours to several hours, depending on the content and if it actually answers the questions that readers have. Um, So audiobooks can be great when you're pulling out of the podcast episodes. Then your YouTube video can be created from a podcast episode, like a soundtrack on top of a video. This can be much like a music video or like one of those cartoon drawing type of voice overlay type of things. There's a few different examples of how that might be, but essentially the audio could be pulled exactly from the podcast, and then you do something to give a visual element to make it a video that'll perform on YouTube. And then in your podcast, as you're having conversations, whether it's with yourself or it's with someone else you're interviewing or being interviewed on, questions come up and you have a conversation, and oftentimes some tangents happen. And those questions will be great conversation starters for you in other places. Um, it can be simply a sentence that you type in on a social post, or it can be a graphic that you add and create out of it. But essentially, those questions you pull will be great for discussions to increase engagement. Um, the social graphics are another option you could do with the quotes. Like if someone says a really wise thing or if it's really insightful, or perhaps someone has a statistic that is brought up in the podcast, you can make a graphic for that to then add intrigue for the podcast episode to help promote it, or simply as a totally unique content. Audiograms, if you are not familiar, audiograms are basically the picture that you see on a few social profiles, where you'll get these sound bars. It's like a graph that moves when you hear the audio, but the visual with it doesn't necessarily move. It's just an interesting picture. It might be a quick like title of the episode and who's talking. But that is a way to share a clip of the podcast elsewhere. Um, Audiograms can be on social media, it can be on a blog post, it can be anywhere essentially that you'd want to necessarily share the podcast, but need a little bit of a visual component to that audio. And then, of course, you can have a live stream. Now, this could be you talk about what you just talked about, or you record your podcast at the same time that you are doing a live stream. You see that big example would be Joe Rogan. He's got a YouTube channel where he's doing the actual conversation at the same time that he's doing a podcast episode. And it's interesting to watch sometimes because there's an interesting setup that's there. But if you don't have a setup that looks great, then perhaps it may not be something you're comfortable with. Totally up to you. You could also just reuse that content during a live stream where you talked about something. And that looks like that's the end of my list here. So stop sharing there. If you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. I want to go ahead and help you. If you thought of different things, there's a lot of different examples as to how it can go. So if you wanted to, for example, create a podcast episode, you want to take a transcript and optimize it for a blog post, That might take, I don't know, a few days. And then beyond that, you'll repurpose the content. You've got questions and social graphics for quotes, and you'll share that throughout the week after you've recorded or after you've released the recording of the podcast. And then the blog post goes up, let's see, the end of the week. So that Monday is the podcast. You've got the sharing, the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday social content. And then on Friday, you have the blog post. And then Friday afternoon, you have the email sharing all of these options, in which you also have, hey, you want to listen to this over the weekend? Here's the podcast episode. If you want to read this instead, here's the blog post. And then you let your readers tell you where they prefer to go. By doing this, you actually are hitting more people. We've talked about the benefits here before, but let's go ahead and highlight that real quick, because you are going to help the people who prefer to read and the people who prefer to listen to the content while they're doing something else. There's a lot of people who prefer to be active and not have to sit and read things, or if they read, they skip a lot of content because they're skimming, and so they don't catch everything unless you created the content in a way that helps pull their attention to the most important things, which of course is part of optimizing your content. All right, so if you have any other questions, let me know. I am going to go ahead and stop that there. And it looks like I've got nothing coming in yet at this point. So if you are interested in the Coaches Content Collective, I want to invite you to join the waitlist. I've got it linked up. It is stephaniegray.com/F/CCC wait. And you'll be able to get a little bit of information there, but it's essentially just a place to put your name in the waitlist. If you are on the waitlist, you will get more information as it comes out and it's ready. And you'll be the first to know when you can get access to the blog coaching and content marketing as assistance. It will be a community of support and resources for you to keep your content marketing simple. So, of course, if that sounds interesting, go there, sign up, let me know, and I will catch you next time.